welcome back to Saltier Politics. Julie, how was your Thanksgiving break?
Well, my Thanksgiving break was good. My Thanksgiving itself was interesting. I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. So it was a very interesting Thanksgiving. Most of the people at my Thanksgiving table, well, first of all, everybody was family, but everybody was my parents' age or in their mid-70s or older. In fact, the oldest person there, I think, was 91. My aunt and uncle were there. They're in their 80s. And it was a little bittersweet because they're all hopefully in good health. But these are people that I've been celebrating holidays with for, decades. And the youngest person at my table was 7, which was my son. And it's just kind of made me really think about the passage of time. I don't want to be too maudlin, but for some reason this year I really thought about my family. How obviously I've known them my whole life, and how time is tempest fugit. But other than that, it was your typical family dynamics. A bunch of crazy Russians. Nobody has a filter in my family. There's no such thing as sparing each other's feelings in my family. When people sit at the table together, if you call it not just like you see it, but you call it like
right where it hurts.
Right where it hurts.
The kill shot.
Yeah. So that was interesting, but that's I'm used to that, so that's okay. And it was okay. And then I went up to Massachusetts. So we went up to Massachusetts afterwards and chilled out and in the Berkshires, which was very nice. So it was a very Jersey Thanksgiving followed by a very New England Thanksgiving weekend. So it was generally a good time had by all. How about you?
That's nice. I was warm in Florida. It was 80 degrees. Good. So that was great.
As negative as we are about Florida, you do get the 80-degree weather.
When there's that, you can't complain, because I went on a lot of long walks, which was really nice outside. Nice. And my favorite food this Thanksgiving, my dad made chicken marsala, which was
nice. See, you guys are Italian.
Yeah,
that's great.
Completely did nothing traditional Thanksgiving, which was fine with me.
So my dad, who's a really good cook, did turkey, but I don't know what he did to it. I'm usually not a huge turkey fan. This turkey was great. And then in typical Russian fashion, the side was not stuffing or cranberry sauce or the usual stuff. It was buckwheat.
What?
It was kasha. Because that's what
I could imagine. Like, what are we having for sides? Buckwheat.
Actually, I like buckwheat. I'm not a big fan of stuffing or sweet potatoes, so I was perfectly happy with that. But it was just so hilarious. I'm like, yeah, this is you can take the family out of Russia for 40 years, but still,
can't.
Buckwheat.
All right.
Buckwheat.
Okay, so let's get right.
Their 39th Thanksgiving in this country, still serving buckwheat.
Oh my! You know what? I've never had buckwheat.
And not just that, there's this new wine that it's not new, but I've discovered this red wine called La Carvel that if anybody ever wants a great dry Bordeaux, you should buy this wine by the case, as I do.
I will be over yours soon to try it.
Well, I think you have tried it, actually. I've been serving it at my house for a while. But then my father prides himself on purchasing Charles Shaw, otherwise known as $2 Chuck. And
the $2 Chuck.
The $2 Chuck, which I think now is $3 Chuck, but he knows it as Charles Shaw. And that's what he always serves, because only the finest. And I bring my own, my bottle of La Carvel, which is actually really good and not $2 or $3. And I open it and I said, Dad, why don't you try this? And he's like, what is this swill? I was like, well, it's not $2 Chuck, but it's, I think, pretty good. And anyway, if anybody out there wants to do a taste test of Charles Shaw, which I believe you could buy at any Trader Joe's for $2 or $3, which actually is not bad. I don't want to be down on $2 Chuck. It's pretty good, or $3 Chuck. But or La Carvel, you should do a blind taste test. My father just thought it was atrocious. My parents, it's really funny. There are two types of Russians out there: the ones that drink a lot and the ones that look down on people who drink a lot. My parents are the latter, so they're not particularly big drinkers at all. And so when my mother, will have a glass of wine or something, and that's it. But my father, I think, decided he was going to be American. And so he was going to drink Bud Light, or Bud, sorry, not Bud Light, Bud. That's his beer of choice. Jack Daniels, because I think that's what he thought when he was in Russia, Americans drank. And Charles Shaw, only the finest of Trader Joe vintages, a.k.a. $2 Chuck.
What a juxtaposition, some buckwheat and some Bud.
Yeah, we didn't have Bud. We had two. Well, I had my La Carvel, which apparently was swill, but
at least it's more for you.
Oh yeah, believe me, that bottle was gone. But yes, but he enjoyed his $2 chuck, and I don't know if anybody else really drank. I think it was pretty much the two of us, and he doesn't really drink much, so I had a good time. I am that rare Russian that does not look down on people who drink or is an alcoholic myself. I don't think.
It's a happy medium.
It's a happy medium.
All right, so let's move on to this story. This week kind of caught my attention. It's the Gabrielle Union, the alleged toxic work environment on America's Got Talent. I don't know if you heard about it.
I did.
So pretty much, according to Variety, Gabrielle Union was allegedly told her hairstyles were, quote, too black for the show's audience. She also reportedly asked NBC's Human Resources Department to be made aware of an on-camera joke made by Jay Leno about Korean food. It was picturing dogs. Mm-hmm. There was also apparently racism in choosing the show's contestants. Her colleague said instead of a 10-year-old black rapper, they wanted an act that America could get behind.
Yes, I read that.
Yeah, and then there was Simon Cowell's smoking habit. I guess his dressing room was near hers, and he just would never stop smoking, even though it's not allowed. And producers were also apparently annoyed that she asked contestants who performed in drag what their preferred pronouns were.
So what's interesting about America's Got Talent, which I have admittedly never seen in my life.
Don't worry, I've seen them.
Well, I know you. If I need any reality TV information, I know who to go to. As you know, I have never actually sat through an entire reality TV show in my life, whether the Kardashians or Real Housewives or American Idol or anything else. But American Idol still on?
It is. I think it's on its last leg, so.
Okay. So America's Got Talent. But what I did read the Gabrielle Union story. What I found interesting is they've had a lot of turnover with women. But yet Simon Cowell, is it Howie Mandel? Is that the other guy?
Yes.
Are the two constant. So the men are always there, but the women, there's always turnover. And again, I don't want to get on my high horse, but I will, because it's our podcast and I could do whatever I want.
Right.
Why is it that the women are always perceived to be troublemakers when they raise issues, like consistently? I mean, Gabrielle Union, and nobody's disputing this, by the way, right? I don't think anybody from NBC, is this NBC? Is that the network?
Yes, no one is getting it.
Yeah, nobody's saying, oh no, she's wrong or whatever. So I don't think what Gabrielle Union was suggesting is that controversial. And in terms of, an act that America can get behind, Mike, what are you talking about? Oprah Winfrey, Beyonce, Michael Jackson,
Right.
In my 46 years on Earth, when I think about people who dominated pop culture as I was growing up, I just forget Beyonce because she's, after my time, but Michael Jackson, Prince, Oprah, Barack Obama twice. Since when are African Americans not somebody that America could get behind, especially in the entertainment industry? I mean, think about the biggest entertainers in the world, even today. And I don't know much about pop culture today, but I mean, I think about Jay-Z, Beyonce. It's crazy. And I don't understand what a black hairstyle is, other than was she trying to wear dress? Like what is it? A dress?
I guess just more natural.
More natural, like afro. Great. As somebody who's got really fine, thin hair, like my fantasy is to be able to do that. I don't understand what the problem is. Not making jokes about Koreans eating dog food is
right, and pointing it out.
And by the way, Jay Leno, Jay Leno's act is so old. Like, are you really still making fun of Koreans eating dog food, Jay Leno? Really? Like, that's not even it's
not right.
It's not even that it's not right. Forget the PC aspect of it. Like, you really couldn't think of anything else except the most stereotypical, ridiculous thing on earth to joke about that nobody under the age of 80 finds hilarious, Jay Leno. Like, what's wrong with you? And of course she gets pushed out, and she gets pushed out for being high maintenance because, as I've always said, when men who create waves are suddenly perceived to be tough and they're taking charge, women who create waves after or if they're not fired, they first are tagged with the reputation of being difficult to work with, and only after they're tagged with that reputation are they then summarily fired or pushed out because, oh, she's really difficult to work with. If that's the only thing Gabrielle Union did, that's not a woman who's difficult to work with. That's a woman who doesn't want to absorb disgusting secondhand smoke, when I don't blame her. That's a woman who wants to look, she's a beautiful woman who wants to look the way she looks and probably wear hair that is her natural hair instead of having it straightened all the time. I don't know what her hairstyle was, but whatever the too black thing is, but it's absurd, whatever it is. That's a woman who wanted some old white dude named Jay Leno to stop with the stupid cliche jokes. And that's a woman who asked about pronouns because, believe it or not, that's really important to people who have non-traditional gender pronouns, right?
Absolutely.
And what's wrong with any of that? And then, of course, for that, she's difficult to work with, really can't work with Gabrielle Union. Let's bring in somebody who's more easy to work with. Translation, somebody's going to sit there and keep her mouth shut when Simon Cowell is blowing smoke in her face.
Right.
And why should she be getting lung cancer? Because Simon Cowell has decided to,
Right, because he wants to smoke like a chimney. It's absolutely ridiculous. And Union's a long time activist too. She's fought for sexual assault in Colin Kaepernick and a lot of different issues. So it's like they knew that they were getting a very strong woman. So it's like her not being herself.
Yeah, you think about the fact that Hollywood, and not just Hollywood, I mean everybody, the whole Me Too movement happened. And suddenly women were led to believe in Hollywood and elsewhere that, oh my goodness, now our voices are heard, and you've got all these movies being made about it. There's one coming out about Fox News that you know about that's coming out on the 13th called Bombshell. That purports to tell, I haven't seen it so I can't judge it, but purports to tell the story of how these women at Fox News, whether it's Megyn Kelly or Gretchen Carlson or me or a bunch of other women, finally said enough is enough, and they stood up and they teamed up. This is what I hear. I haven't seen the movie again, and so women are in those movies. Women watch those movies. Women in Hollywood are thinking, oh, these movies are being made, or The Loudest Voice, which is the story of Gretchen Carlson taking on Fox News that was on Showtime with Russell Crowe and Naomi Watts. More and more of these kind of girl power movies about taking on the man, taking on the system. And you have people like Gabrielle Union and others who are like, wait a second, wait, we could actually do this. And then, of course, the minute they try to do it, bam, they're completely shut down, because the reality is you can make all the movies you want about patting yourself on the back about how far we've come along. This is Exhibit Z, 1A, about how women have really not been able to voice their views like this. And something's got to change. I mean, why is it that Simon Cowell, and I get that he's the producer of the show and he created it, but why is he allowed to sit there and be difficult? Why is he allowed to blow smoke in people's face?
And it's just, he just doesn't care, because apparently producers have been asking him to stop, and different fire marshals and whatever, and he just doesn't do it.
He doesn't care. So maybe, I don't know if he gets a fine from the LA Fire Department, or maybe nobody even has the nerve to fine him. But why the hell is somebody like Simon Cowell and Howie Mandel, who, again, it's been a long time since I've seen a Howie Mandel show. It's been about 30 years, but so I don't know. I guess
that's about where his humor is.
But that's my point. I guess but it's always the women. Notice how the women cycle out. Wasn't Heidi Klum on that show before?
Heidi Klum was Mel B,
who apparently is also quote unquote difficult to work with. But I mean, it's the women who constantly are cycled out consistently, and the men are allowed to get away with what they want. And again, I hate this. I have a son. I don't ever want to get, I have men in my life who I love, and I don't want to get on this moral high horse like women good, men bad, because that's not at all what I mean. But the system is set up consistently to make it difficult for women to speak up, because the minute they do, they are tagged with being difficult, when all they're doing is protecting their own rights with respect to not wanting smoke blown in her face and get secondhand smoke and lung cancer. I mean, God, nothing's more disgusting than somebody blowing cigarette smoke in your face. Or her protecting the interest of others. For example, asking about people's pronouns. She is a woman. She refers to herself, I assume, as a woman. She's being considerate of other people who may not do that. Or this little African-American kid who, by all accounts, was supposed to be this huge breakthrough star, and I think has become one subsequent to that.
Tyler Perry signed him.
Yeah, good for Tyler Perry. But why does it take for Tyler Perry to sign him? Because, quote unquote, America can't get behind him. Her career is just fine. She's standing up for some little African-American kid, and saying, what do you mean some little African-American kid can't be somebody America gets behind? How about all the other little African-American kids that America has gotten behind, starting with Motown? And no, the answer is no, you can't stand up for that kid. I don't know. It makes me, I don't even know why you brought this up because it just makes me very angry.
Well, let's kind of channel that anger into some of your tweets. The one that made me laugh just out loud, Julie, which is your humor is fantastic. But
thank you.
Someone tweeted out, having heard Julie Roginsky speak on TV once, it seems she is a radical left socialist Democrat who hates America, God, country, and President Trump, who is making America great after the Democrats destroyed much of it. Please read your response, because that was, I giggled.
Well, why don't you read my response, because I don't even know what my response is.
Having been born speaking Russian, this is exactly the grammar a Russian troll would use to translate his words into English. Hope it's not too cold in St. Petersburg this evening.
So, my little Russian trolls, and this guy obviously is going to deny he's a Russian troll.
He's 100% Russian.
But dude, like, I know how Russians structure their sentences. There's a very specific way of doing it. And I know how my parents structure their sentences when they're speaking English, because in their head, they're translating from Russian into English. And it's like, I specialize in this. And then I love some people tweeted back and they're like, especially some woman who I think is also Russian. You weren't born speaking Russian. You learned how to speak Russian. Yes. All right. I was not some baby genius who was born speaking Russian. It was, however, my first language, and it was my only language until the age of 7. So let me assure you, I know how the sentences are structured, and I know how the phrasing is structured. And more importantly, I can really spot Russian propaganda from 100 miles away, and that is, in fact, exactly what Russian propaganda is. So cut it out.
They're using all like the fun words too. Oh. Socialist Democrat.
I mean, socialist Democrat. It's like,
hates America, God, country.
Yeah. I mean, I got it, dude. I mean, you're sitting in your little outskirts of St. Petersburg. And what time did that guy tweet?
It didn't say. Or it said 1:04 p.m.
All right, 1:04 p.m. So it's late night in St. Petersburg.
It's definitely, he's cold.
And he's cold because the one thing about these Russian troll farms is that they work overnight to make it look like they're working, because it's an 8-hour time difference, that they're working on, I think it's 7 or 8 hours, that they're working on our time, right? East Coast time or West Coast time. So I get it. It's cold. It's really cold in St. Petersburg right now. It's dark. You miss your family. You're getting paid probably a few extra rubles in ways that you wouldn't if you were using your English language skills for, something legit. I get that it's a lucrative thing. I get that you're just mailing it in. But my friend, if you're going to mail it in, don't mail it in to somebody who was, not born speaking Russian, but quickly learned how to speak it when she was verbal at the age of 1 or however old I was. So just don't. Tweet, I don't know, tweet somebody else. Tweet Donald Trump. He'll buy it. Tweet Senator Kennedy of Louisiana, who apparently thinks the Ukrainians are behind Russian interference in our election. But don't tweet somebody who knows how the sausage is made.
Well, let's go into what makes you salty.
I'll tell you what makes me salty. Glad you asked, Emily. What makes me salty, and we can go back to other topics that you have, but what makes me salty is that my old friend Sean Hannity, with whom I was on air for a long time, who, by the way, on a personal level, is a good guy. One-on-one, he and I always got along. Very good to his staff. Just appreciates the people who put him on TV and make him look good, or at least he did when I was there in my presence. But he had Bill O'Reilly, and again, what I find so funny about this is he and Bill O'Reilly used to hate each other. I don't know if people noticed, but they never would do, before Megyn Kelly took over that slot, and O'Reilly had the 8 and Hannity had the 9. They never do the toss to each other because they didn't like each other that much. And then Megyn got the 9 o'clock, and she would always do the toss to Hannity. And I think O'Reilly would do the toss to her, but they really didn't like each other when they worked together. But now, I guess Donald Trump is a uniter, not a divider. He has brought them together. Now they are both on this whole wavelength together. And Sean put out something on his radio show where he basically all but begged O'Reilly to come back to Fox. and said, why don't you take the 8 o'clock slot back, which I wonder how Tucker Carlson feels about that, but that's neither here nor there. Come back. You want me to come back. And let me also preface this by saying Bill O'Reilly never did anything to me. So I do not speak from personal experience with having witnessed Bill O'Reilly act inappropriately around me. He and I actually had very little to do with each other when I was at Fox. But he did do a lot of things, allegedly, to a lot of people who I know and care about. And certainly he left Fox because a lot of those settlements came to light. And what I find troubling, and a lot of those settlements were massive payouts, including a $30 million something payout to Lee Wheel, which I have to say, I know everybody's going to say innocent until proven guilty, but you don't pay that kind of money willy-nilly.
Right.
Companies don't pay that kind of money. Individuals don't pay that kind of money. They are for profit. Inherently, Bill O'Reilly was on Fox News to earn a profit for himself, and Fox News earned a profit for itself. They were not, Bill O'Reilly was not going to pay $30 million to one person, never mind the millions of other people he paid money to, going all the way back to Andrea Macris years and years ago, over a decade ago. This is not the kind of money that people spend unless they have to. And so for Sean Hannity, who is the most visible person of Fox News right now, certainly their most prominent on-air person, for Sean Hannity to suddenly come out and say, yeah, come back, Bill. What does that say to the women who allege these things about Bill O'Reilly? It basically implies one of two things. Either they're all a bunch of liars and poor Bill O'Reilly has been victimized and stigmatized, in which case they just all lied to get a paycheck. Although, again, let me stress that people don't pay tens of millions of dollars in settlements based on nothing. Or it means that, yeah, Bill, we believe that you did this, but it's really not that important. Just come back. All is forgiven. It doesn't matter. Okay, these women, whatever happened, sure it happened, but who cares? Again, it kind of goes back to what we talked about with Gabrielle Union, and at which point do women start mattering? At which point does that matter? I mean, these women, let me also stress, I don't know the terms of their settlements, but a lot of, and I'm not talking specifically about anybody's, but a lot of these settlements globally have something called a no rehire provision. A no rehire means that, okay, we'll settle with you, but you can never come back and work in this organization again. So Bill O'Reilly, who allegedly did all of this and paid the money to settle with these people, he can come back. But these women can't even apply for a job with the same organization again. And again, I don't speak from any personal knowledge of their settlements, but this is something no rehire provisions typically exist in a lot of different organizations.
Can I also say the hypocrisy of just being a conservative in so-called, women on this pedestal and how to treat them and all that? It's just so hypocritical and frustrating to hear, because if you preach one thing and then your actions do another, like bring back a predator, how can you be believed?
Well, because here's the problem, right? The women are on a pedestal as long as they keep their mouths shut.
Oh, yep.
And a lot of women, by the way, a lot of women in a lot of these organizations have kept their mouth shut. I mean, not everybody who could have said something, and I don't blame them at all. It hurts your career to speak out. You're branded a troublemaker. You have a hard time finding a job in a different organization consistently. So I don't blame people for not speaking out. But the people who don't speak out and keep their mouth shut are rewarded. Because I will say this about everybody who alleged something about Bill O'Reilly. Not one of those women is working in television now. And there is something to be said for the fact that none of them lost their talent. Some of them were all of them were incredibly talented women. And yet they're not working in their chosen industry right now. While Bill O'Reilly is solicited by the most prominent on-air personality at the Fox News channel to come back and work there. Nobody's begging these women to come back and work there. Why not? I mean, did these women suddenly lose their talent? That's what I don't understand. Did these women suddenly lose their talent? Or is it that they are branded as troublemakers and therefore they can't work anywhere and do anything. And that's a problem. I mean, that's a massive, massive problem. And that makes me salty, and it makes me salty on their behalf. I know a lot of these women. I worked with a lot of these women. In fact, I'm not going to go through their names. It's not for me to talk about them, but their names are all public, or most of, I shouldn't say all. A lot of these women's names are all public. People know who they are. They were really talented women who got to where they got because of their talent. And now they're not working anywhere. Or at least they're working, but not working in their chosen industry and in their chosen field, and certainly not on television in any real and meaningful way, the way they were before. That's very upsetting to me on their behalf, and it's very upsetting to me when Sean Hannity, who I go back to, look, Bill O'Reilly was never my cup of tea on a personal level. Sean always treated me well. I mean, we always got along well. It's dismissive of these women, and it either says that he thinks that they're liars, or more likely that they're telling the truth, but it doesn't matter. Okay, you spent a couple years in purgatory, now it's time to come back. Well, these women are spending the rest of their lives in purgatory unless there's a massive cultural shift where networks, not Fox, but other networks decide that they will hire them because they don't care that there are women who speak up and are troublemakers, as long as they're talented, because if you don't do anything wrong, you shouldn't worry about hiring somebody who's going to speak up when they see wrongdoing. Gabrielle Union's career, I'd be curious to see what happens to her. I'll be curious to see if she gets hired again for that kind of gig, or whether other studios and other production companies are going to say, well, it's very nice that she spoke up, but she's a troublemaker, and we don't really want somebody like that around, because we don't want somebody who's going to raise their hand if we're doing something wrong. It's better to protect ourselves.
What's so interesting is in that book, Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow, a lot of the actresses the women who Harvey Weinstein assaulted and raped, he would then tell studios that they were difficult to work
Mira
with.
Sorvino.
Yep. They would tell studios they're difficult to work with, they're divas, all that stuff. And it's the same line that is just so frustrating, which makes Gabrielle Union, which makes what you're doing extremely brave and building the way for more women to be able to just say, this isn't right.
It's insane.
And it's so crazy that you have to.
It's insane. But at which point, I keep wondering if networks were run by women. And again, this is not a man to woman thing, but would we take more chances on each other? So for example, name it. Name Mira Sorvino. Great. She has an Oscar. I haven't seen her in much since she got that Oscar. And now we know why.
Right.
Ashley Judd, who was one of the huge actresses.
She was everywhere.
She was everywhere. She was nowhere now. I think she's doing a fairly successful TV show. But the point is, she went through a long season of not being able to do anything. Why? Because she turned him down. Other actresses who were up and coming, who turned him down, and their careers were basically destroyed. And now those women are older, right? I mean, it's harder in Hollywood and television everywhere. I mean, what Mira Sorvino was at 25 is not what Mira Sorvino is going to be in 50 in an industry that rewards youth.
Right, and that rewards building up blockbusters and hits and hits and hits,
right,
and then gives you that capital to be the mom or be the older roles.
And that's so upsetting to me, because what effectively this all does is ensure that women are marginalized. And so again, if I were giving advice to a woman who came to me and said, hey, I'm in this really awful situation, whether it's Gabrielle Union or somebody who has a Bill O'Reilly type situation allegedly, or anything else, and she were to say to me, hey, I want to speak up, I would, and I did have a woman that came to me in a different industry and said, hey, I got raped. I want to speak up. It's going to be a fairly big deal if I speak up. But it's about somebody who's tied to somebody fairly prominent. Again, not on television. And I had a very long discussion with her based on what happened with me, Fox. And I said, the right thing to do on your deathbed would be for you to speak and strike a blow for all women and yada, yada. But think about what this could do to your career. And I want you to really think about this very carefully. And I actually asked her to sleep on it before coming to a conclusion. because it's really important for people to understand the toll that this takes on people's careers and on women's careers. It's always the women on women's careers. And I wish more people would understand that. And I wish they'd understand that everybody thinks, oh, these women are filing lawsuits because they're gold diggers or they want this, or they want that. You know what? No, nobody wants their careers to end. It's just that there are women who are in a position, and not all women, but there are some women who are in a position to be able to speak up because they've analyzed the cost to doing so, and they've realized that the cost of staying silent is too high for them. For some women, the cost of staying silent is what they need to do. So, Sean Hannity, Sean from Long Island, as we used to call him on the clapback. I wish just think about what you're saying. Think about the effect that this has on women who have experienced this, and not just some people who experienced it with Bill O'Reilly. I certainly never did, but on other women in that situation. Gabrielle Union. Think about the effect that would have on somebody like her if it does.
Right.
So,
well, what I'm salty about kind of goes right into this. The former FBI lawyer, Lisa Page, aka the root of all of Trump's deep state conspiracies, her interview with the Daily Beast, I'm glad she spoke out, but super annoyed that she had to, and pretty much refute the fact that she didn't commit treason. And really, one of the quotes that stuck out with me is, it has been so hard not to defend myself, to let people who hate me control the narrative. I decided to take my power back. And the fact that it took, she spoke out, which I'm so happy about. But the fact that Donald Trump constantly bullied and made fun of her, and she said, honestly, his demeaning fake orgasm was really the straw that broke the camel's back, on why she decided to speak out. It's just gross. Why again, women are being made fun of and demeaned. It's just awful. I'm so glad she spoke out, but so annoyed that she had to.
So the part that's really annoying to me is that Donald Trump simulated an orgasm, apparently, when talking about her and Peter Strzok.
At one of his rallies. Right.
I mean, did you read that interview with her in the Daily Beast?
Yeah.
Okay. So I read that, and Molly Jong-Fast, I think, did a fantastic job in setting this up in the interview. And so anybody who has the opportunity to read the Molly Jong-Fast piece on Lisa Page in the Daily Beast should. But here's Lisa Page, who is basically a career civil servant. Not these people. I worked in D.C. They're the political appointees, and the really ambitious Hill staffers, and which I was one at one point, who want to get to the promised land, or they want to be White House press secretary. They want to be, whoever. Kellyanne Conway. There are people who want to be her, who want to be on CNN, who want, or whichever network, and be a household name. Most of the people who work in DC, especially the FBI and the Justice Department, are not those people. Those people are, their whole MO is to not make themselves a story. So here's this woman who shared and she concedes she had an extramarital affair, which is nobody's business but hers and Peter Strzok, and I think that's how you pronounce his name, and his wife. But apparently the IG report's coming out basically saying that this never affected her job performance. It never affected the way she and he conducted their investigation. She texts this man with whom she's having a relationship her private thoughts about Donald Trump. Again, no indication whatsoever that this affected their worldview.
Right. This is our First Amendment right.
Yeah, well, yeah, but even more than that, there's not one person who doesn't have a private opinion about Donald Trump, right?
Right.
The question is, does it affect your job performance or not? Does it affect how you conduct your performance or not? Everybody's got an opinion about the President of the United States, Donald Trump, Barack Obama, George Bush, Bill Clinton, name it. You're not impervious to having a personal opinion, which you share with the people closest to you, and of which he was one, obviously. But again, is there any evidence that it affected their job performance? The answer is no. In exchange for that, she has the President of the United States simulating an orgasm. First of all, are you kidding me?
Right? I'm just like...
Are you kidding me? What is this, Robert Plant?
Like
on Zep 2? Like, are you a 12-year-old?
Yes.
I mean, what kind of adult in public does this unless you're Meg Ryan doing Harry Met Sally? And secondly, the president of the United States is simulating orgasm. Somehow I missed this. I don't know. Did you know about this until this?
No, not until the article. Then I clicked it and then I watched it.
Oh, I didn't. Oh, God. I didn't want to watch it because
you can't unsee that.
That's the thing. I don't want to see it in the first place.
That's right. You don't click it. It's gross.
But look, for that, she got her career is essentially destroyed. And more importantly, she said something, and I think people misunderstand this. I don't care how much of a joke you think Donald Trump is. He is still, today, the most powerful man in the world by virtue of the office he holds. The president of the United States I don't care who it is, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, the next guy or woman will be the most powerful person on the planet when that person becomes president. To be a career civil servant and to have the president of the United States consistently mock you, go after you, simulate orgasms, talk about your affair, imply things about you, you can't undo that, right? That's stuff that's going to be following you. I don't know that she has children. I don't think she does. But if she ever chooses to have kids, or even if she doesn't, I don't know if her parents are still alive. It's like Monica Lewinsky, right? Monica Lewinsky did something when she was 22, 23 years old. For the rest of her life, we will all know Monica Lewinsky for one thing and one thing only, because she happened to have done it with a president of the United States. And nothing else that she does in this world, including curing cancer, will take that off as the first paragraph of her obituary. Same thing with Lisa Page. Isn't there some sort of humanity, morality, something that somebody has as president of the United States to think twice about doing something like that to somebody?
Yeah, there's absolutely no excuse. It made my skin boil. That's why I'm so glad we had the podcast today, because I needed to talk about it with you.
It's gross. I mean, it's gross. And all, Jerry Falwell, all these, people who are these moral evangelicals. You have somebody, really? You want your kids to watch this at a rally? I mean, ew.
You can't.
Unlike you, I'm not that curious. I didn't click on it because I knew that I could not see it. But even the notion, even the mental concept of doing this at a rally where there are children.
I know.
And
then it's like, and then that whole argument where everybody was like with Clinton that they have to go home and explain to their kids what oral sex is. Now, how does that conversation go? Explain what an orgasm is.
I mean,
like, could you imagine?
No.
It's just like, they can't ever argue about anything anymore because Trump has like done it all.
No. And the cruelty with which they're treating this woman, and her situation, and the cruelty with which they are treating this man and his situation. And maybe he has children. I don't know. But I mean, has anybody thought about this, about airing people's dirty laundry? I don't know. It's
Trump's MO.
It's Trump's MO, right? And again, Donald Trump is making fun of somebody for having an extramarital affair. Are you joking?
Right?
I mean, are you kidding?
I can't even, Julie. I can't even.
Listen, this is. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. It's so disturbing to me. And then you think about the fact that he's got a 12 or 13-year-old son. How does that kid feel?
Right.
Like
maybe Melania will talk about it during her bullying initiative.
But that's my point. Like his children, except for Barron and Tiffany, his 3 oldest kids, all have small children. Like, I don't want to be like, won't somebody think of the grandkids? But like, won't somebody think of the grandkids?
Right.
Listen, it's a personal matter. It's a personal matter. And he's like but he's doing it with such glee. I'm not sure what he's trying to prove. Is he trying to say that the only reason this FBI investigation began into Russian interference is because these 2 people were having an affair and they decided to somehow launch this like investigation, despite the fact that every single intelligence agency in this country determined that Russians interfered in this election. But somehow Peter Strzok, I can't, maybe I'm mispronouncing his name, but Peter Strzok and Lisa Page somehow cooked this up in the midst of what? Like some night together. They're like, oh, I know. Let's go get Donald Trump and persuade every other intelligence agency, including one run by Michael Pompeo, his now Secretary of State, former CIA director, who also came to the same conclusion. Everybody, his own intelligence agencies have come to that conclusion. And yet, because that's what I mean about him being cruel. It seems to me like he's going after these people just for the sport of it.
I think that in his eye, it looks like sport.
That's what I mean.
It's a twinkle.
But why? Like, what's the reason to do it other than just to be cruel? Like, other than just to humiliate them? I think he's
just that person.
But like... Right.
There's no reason. It's a waste.
But why do it? Like, why do it?
He's a small person.
But that's beyond small person. That's like that's a level of cruelty that's awful. Like, that's not a small person. That is a really awful, cruel, horrific, terrible human being. And I don't care how much you love Donald Trump, like, look inward. Is that the kind of guy you want to be? And I don't want to hear about her emails or look at what the Clintons did to people who opposed them. Think about yourself. Think about yourself. Is this the kind of guy you want to be friends with? Is
this the kind of guy you want your daughter to marry? No.
Because she could be the fourth Mrs. Trump. Right. Because, and she's probably coming up at an age where she will be. So, because... Because really good. Thank you. Because, like, you know what those people are? I know people like that. And I've kind of, around the age of 40, got rid of all of them. Because you know who those people are? Those are the kind of people who always make fun of other people's expense and you think it's hilarious until you realize any day could be you.
Right.
They're gonna right? We all know those people who you're like, oh my God, that guy's the funniest guy in the world. And then you realize that guy's really funny because he's making fun of somebody else in a really cruel way, and you think it's hilarious, and then you realize, oh wait, that could be me he's making fun of, or she's making fun of behind, like, do we have friends like that? I don't have friends like that anymore. I used to have a lot of them. I don't have friends like that anymore. You kind of get rid of those toxic people once you get older and you cull your friend list. Right. So if you don't want that in a friend, why would you want that in the president who's got that megaphone? This poor woman.
I know.
God.
Well, what a salty politics this week.
It is. I am going to have a massive announcement next week about something that I've been working on for a while. And we will have to do this podcast toward the latter part of next week. But I will have something really huge to announce. So I'm really excited for it. And until then, I hope everybody has a great week, a great weekend.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks. All right. See you guys. Bye.